the most common things. I just finished my finals, doc. I'm catching a cold. That's the relation to the immune system and lack of sleep right there. More facts there. 70% of American adults report not getting the recommended sleep needed each night, at least 7.5 hours to perform their best. Now let me ask you a question now. I have a raised hands. How many people are sleeping 8 hours a night? So we see we're at less than a couple hands going up already. Straight through. So not 4 2-hour naps. Not 3 2.7, naps. But 8 straight hours. Going to sleep and waking up in the morning. You can see the percentage is already way lower than it needs to be. That's 70% probably of this audience and 70% of Americans minimum. 81% of Americans report waking up with back, neck, or shoulder pain in the past year, and nearly half, 46%, reported that they are frequently, at least a few times a month, waking up with these type of pains that limit their physical performance. Now that can affect an athlete, that can affect a mom, that can affect a person in any type of profession. If you're not getting your sleep, you cannot be your best. It is something that as a chiropractor we frequently experience in our office. It's a regular basis that someone's, hey, I have this, this, and this. I haven't slept for 2 or 3 nights, and it's not getting any better. You see, sleep is a time where your body heals. It's a time where our body was intended since day one to get our sleep. But what do we notice over time? We watch as babies, we're sleeping almost all day. We grow up a little bit less. Through our teenage years, we're still getting our sleep as we're growing. Then as an adult, a little bit less sleep. And then what do we start seeing? Once we have our own children, we're not sleeping at all. So, now we talked about a couple facts that warmed you up. Let's talk about what sleep is. This is just a pure dictionary type of definition. You can find it anywhere. It's a naturally recurring altered state of consciousness. It's relatively suspended sensory and motor activity, and is characterized by an inactivity of nearly all voluntary muscles. Sleep is a heightened anabolic state. If you're not sure what that word means, it's a building or growing state as opposed to catabolic, which is a breaking down state, accentuating the growth and rejuvenation of the nervous, immune, skeletal, and muscular systems. I'm not in your way at all, am I? You able to see okay from here? If I stand here? Okay. Now let's talk about this. Adults need 7 to 8 hours of sleep each night. Newborns, on the other hand, need almost double that, 16 or more than double that, 16 to 18 hours a day. Preschool children, 10 to 12. School-age children and teens, at least 9 hours. And I'll tell you, probably the most neglected area is right there, school age. It is a rarity that we see children getting 9 hours. In fact, children probably more likely to not get 5, 6 hours from what I've seen. Okay? And that's where it's causing them attention deficit disorder. Well, of course they're having a problem sleep. They're sleeping at night. Of course they're having a problem because they're trying to sleep while they're in class. Does that make sense? I mean, if you're not able to get your sleep, when are you going to do it? Your body's going to eventually shut down. You're going to get to sleep one way or other. So they're trying to medicate your kids. They're trying to tell them, hey, their grades are bad, their concentration's bad. They're trying all that kind of approach. At the end of the day, get them on a schedule. And we're going to talk a little bit more about what it takes to make that schedule happen for all of you. But it does take weeks and up to months sometimes to change your sleep schedule. All right. These are the things that are just simple little tidbits that we should all work on, and this will help switch up that sleep routine. Like I said, it will take anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks to really start noticing a difference, as it does with anything in the body. It takes time to adapt. Go to bed and get up at the same time each day. Avoid caffeine, nicotine, beer, wine, and liquor in the 4 to 6 hours of sleep. Funny, I was reading through this one, and I said, I got to put that in there because I was thinking about coffee. I was thinking the majority of people, they like to have their cup of coffee right before bed or with dinner. That's a tough thing, especially in Miami. Culturally, that's something that we've been trained to do. Don't exercise within 2 hours of bedtime. That's going to rev up your metabolism there. We'll talk a little bit more about what that does to you. Don't eat large meals within 2 hours of bedtime. One of the most common things I see in my office, and especially in Miami. We're having our smallest meal for breakfast, working our way up to a little bit bigger meal for lunch, and then of course, we're eating like a king for dinner. Our body goes through a state where it's trying to burn that up, giving us energy, raising our blood sugar up, and we're not falling asleep. Big thing I'd like a lot of people to change, and I have a lot of my patients change in my office with great results. Not napping later than 3 p.m. There's a reason why it is 3 p.m. there. The majority of children get home from school at 3 p.m. They take that nap because they're burnt out from a bad night's sleep, and they were actually able to stay attentive and stay awake. They go home, they pass out, they're out for 2 to 3 hours, they wake up 6 o'clock, loaded with energy, and their body's not ready to go back to sleep till 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, and they got to wake up at 6 o'clock. So there's your 5 hours of sleep and 3 hours of napping, accounting for their 8 to 9 hours of sleep, instead of going to bed at 9, 10 o'clock and waking up at 6 o'clock like they should. Sleep in a dark, quiet room that isn't too hot or too cold. Now that's something that's more of a preference. With spouses, you got a little bit more to factor in there, of course. If there's children even in your room, then that's even a further thing to factor out. A dark, quiet room means no television. Not putting it on silent or mute. A dark, quiet room means no computers or internet. A dark, quiet room instills in us a value for being asleep when the sun's down and waking up when the sun rises. It's one of the most difficult habits to get into, but that's really what our body should be tuned is to that sleep cycle right there. And if you can't fall asleep, of course, these are the ways to go. Within 20 minutes, you should get up and do something quiet until you feel sleepy. That means reading a nice, calm, simple novel, nothing action-packed, no adventures, no murder, suspense, mystery, that kind of stuff, but something that's going to calm and quiet your nerves down. Not watching the Channel 7 news at 6:30, 7 o'clock, hearing about deaths, suicide, all these kind of stuff. That's not the way to go. That's going to riv you up and get you ready for about 5 or 6 hours of staying awake, much like coffee will. Okay? Wind down in the 30 minutes before, doing something relaxing. I was talking about reading. Stick with some music. Don't sit on that internet. Unfortunately for us, that internet has become a thing. We check our email right before we go to bed, and we know that, hey, we want to catch everything before. We don't want to have to answer these emails when we wake up in the morning, so we get tuned into doing it that way. Stay away from that computer if you can, at least the last half hour before you go to sleep, and it will help your sleep habits immensely. These are a couple hot topics. These are what we've been talking about in our office recently. And they've came up time and time again. Sleep apnea. Let me explain to you first what it is. This is something that's really, really embedded in the science of sleeping there. Sleep apnea is just a disorder characterized by having one or more pauses in breathing or shallow breaths during each sleep. Each pause in breathing, called an apnea, lasts for a few seconds to a few minutes and may occur 5 to 30 times or more an hour. You're basically waking up 5 to 30 times an hour. And I will tell you this. We have found out that patients that we have seen with their sleeping tests come back up to even 100 times an hour. Now this is a little more rare, but imagine taking naps and waking up about every minute. That's what this is equating to. Okay, 5 to 30 times really, truly changes your sleep cycle entirely. Now, let me talk about what some of the cures for this are. Okay, there's a lack of oxygen going through that airway, and it's causing people to gasp to wake up to try and grab some of that breathing back into a normal state. They've tried some medication, but even more so, the most common thing they're using now is called a CPAP machine.